What's up, folks? I was thinking that I would do a review of the Jones 29 Plus long wheelbase. I know there's like a few reviews out there, most of them done by Jeff Jones himself and by Jones Bikes in general, I guess. And I think there's like a review out there of the Jones short wheelbase complete bike by Path Less Pedaled. So I thought I would just do like a regular human bike rider review of the Jones long wheelbase. This is obviously a custom version. I don't think Jones sells a long wheelbase complete yet. He might. Probably want to check the website out for that. But this is a Jones long wheelbase titanium steel mix. So the fork is made out of titanium. You can get a full titanium long wheelbase also, I think in space frame and regular diamond frame. But this is the model this is the frame set that comes with the titanium fork and the steel frame. This is a size 25. I think he calls that a large on the website. A lot of folks are not sure like which size to go with when it comes to getting a Jones. I've actually rolled the medium long wheelbase and the large long wheelbase, both in diamond frames. I'm about 6 feet tall, 5'11-ish, 5'11 and a half, somewhere around that range. And normally folks say to go with the medium. I know Jeff recommended to go with the medium. But after riding with the medium for a while, I decided to give the large a shot because I got kind of long legs and I have some back issues. So I like to be pretty upright on my bikes. And I decided to go try the 25 out. This is the 25 here. Been riding it for a while. Turns out it was a smart decision. I mean, you can take a look here and see that there's a decent amount of seat post showing. And the bars are almost even with the seat, maybe a little higher. But that's the way I like it. And it's good for my back. I've had a whole bunch of injuries in my back. And that's one of the reasons I ended up going with a Jones bike in the first place. Yes, believe the hype on the geometry and how it is that you feel in terms of rider position. It is the best you're going to get for a rigid bike, in my opinion. I've tried everything from Surly to South. I used to ride a Fargo. Fargo with the carbon fork setup. I think that was like the Apex build or something like that in the last couple of years. Where as much as I like those off-road, body position isn't as comfortable and weight distribution isn't as good for like pretty gnarly stuff that you might ride, depending on what kind of rider you are. But I kind of had a BMX background growing up, rode a lot of full suspension bikes, stuff like that, and I just wanted to play around with some rigid stuff. I was also having back problems, so I went and tried out a Jones. Definitely the smartest move I made. I'm going to stick by that and say probably the best rigid mountain bike you can buy. It does it all. Really, it feels comfortable. The rider position is great for balance, attacking tough terrain. All the stuff he says on his website and his videos is pretty much on the money. But speaking of money, these bikes to build one up are not cheap. It cost me close to $2,000 for the frame set. It took me a long time to build it up. I threw these wheels on here. These are the Race Face Arc 45s, so 45 interior. So that's 50 millimeters on the outside. They're attached to some Purple Hope hubs right here. So the wheel set alone, take a look at the rear. The wheel set alone was probably close to $800, around there. The tires mounted here are the V Speedsters. They're 2.8, so 29 by 2.8. They're definitely a decent slick. They're really pretty good for gravel riding, I would say. Just be careful with the cornering, and tire pressure is a little bit tricky with these. If you have too low tire pressure in the front, you can have that kind of like auto steer feeling. So you really got to get it right. But they're a pretty good compromise, especially since they're the only 2.8 slick oriented tire out there. So consider that when if you decide to pick a pair of these up. I've ridden the G1 speeds on this. That makes the bike super fast. They're really light tires, although they're going to be like 2.25, so you're not going to get as much of that cush when you ride, and that's something that you got to decide whether or not it matters to you. You know, how much quote unquote suspension that you want out of your tire, as opposed to how much weight penalty and how much speed penalty you want to pay for that. Another thing too, I wanted to step back and talk about the frame here, because on the 25 long wheelbase, you get a lot more space in the front triangle. So you can see here there's 3 water bottle mounts set up, and you can definitely get a lot of stuff in there. A huge frame bag. I know that Jeff sells them on his website. So the 25 does give you an extra water bottle cage. And don't forget, you have mounts on the bottom here too. As you can see, this is a little dirty yesterday from doing some gravel riding, but you can see the mounts on the bottom. So you can get a decent amount of water on this, water bottles on this frame. And in the rear, you have these mounts here. You can use these to mount fenders, which I've done here. Hard to find fenders for these size wheels, by the way. The company that made these were called Big O, and I don't think they make them anymore. I think the company might be out of business, but I had to sort of cut them out and adjust them to the needs for this particular bike, but they're really good once you get them mounted. They're super strong, and I take this thing off some pretty bumpy mountain bike rides, and they stay stable. So they're pretty good. I'm riding out here in the Pacific Northwest, so there's a decent amount of mud and rain. So having fenders here is, I don't want to say a must, but it's definitely convenient. It makes things a lot easier, especially if you're commuting to work. And I do use this bike to commute. So I have, as you can see here, one of the Salsa rear rack setups. And it's perfect if you want to hook up some panniers and, take this guy to work, ride it to work, bring your stuff. I bring it to work all the time. And I mount all the stuff I need for work, my laptop and all that sort of thing. It mounts up just fine here to the frame, as you can see. And then over here I have a setup with the seat post that has an adapter for the rack mounts also. And you're going to need that on the long wheelbase because it doesn't have rack mounts like the short wheelbase does. I don't know why they did that, but it is what it is. What else could I say? So handlebars here set up, just have them wrapped all the way around for long rides. You have a lot of riding positions with Jones bars, so you can put your hands here on the front crossbar or on the loop at the top. You also have space to mount different things, right? And if you look here, well, yesterday was kind of a rough ride, so I'm not going to get into why those grips are dirty. It's a long story. But these are kind of those long, I forget what size they are, grips for the Jones bar. He sells these on his website. Also, you can get them in more of a clear pattern and stuff. I chose the black. I got XT hydraulic brakes on here. Mixed it up with some SRAM shifters. You can kind of see them in the back. The GX model. This is a 1x setup, 1x11. Clutch derailleur, also GX. So the componentry is pretty basic in terms of the gearing. So all GX stuff. These pedals were a nice find, actually. The brand FUNN, Fun. They are pretty cool because they're like regular size platform pedals, but you flip them over. I mean, really regular size platform pedals, not like when they say that they are, but they really aren't. They are actually platform pedals, and on the inside you have like an SPD cleated attachment, so you can ride them clipless or you can ride them flat, and they actually feel like real good platform flat pedals. So as far as the front here, the front fender mount, it's a little tricky. And what you do here is kind of put a star nut underneath, and you can run a screw up through there to mount the fenders from underneath. And then this part over here, had to attach to the bottom of the fork, as you can see. And the other side, I actually used the bolt for the front disc brake and just made a longer bolt and attached it through that way. So this is a Jones long wheelbase. How does it ride? Super smooth, very comfortable on long rides. You can throw this bike around if you got even halfway decent skills and you just give it a little bit of time to get used to it. I have done some pretty cool drop-offs with it. Remember, it is a rigid bike, so keep that in mind. I don't know. Not too many people can ride like Jeff. And you look at those videos, you're like, oh, wow, I could do anything with this bike. Yeah, well, you got to kind of have the skills that he has to throw it around the way he does. But that said, you can definitely get used to this bike because it is so comfortable and your body positioning is so right for the weight distribution of the bike itself. And I've now been able to kind of throw it around and play with it a lot more than when I first had it. And what I would say is once you get on one of these bikes and ride them for a while and you get back on a kind of standard mountain bike setup, like even your full suspension, where the geometry is quite different, you're going to miss the feel of being on a bike like this. It is just way more ergonomic. It seems to be much more consistent with the way that your body mechanics are supposed to work. So folks with back pain, injuries, who feel like they can't get on a bike again because of the way that the body position makes them feel, and they may get a lot of pain after like even not really long rides, but just decent rides, this is something to look into. The great thing about this steerer tube here that you get with Jones bikes is that it comes pretty long and you can adjust it to make the handlebar height a little bit better for more comfort. I had it a little higher than this, but I found that I could go a little bit lower. I keep a little on the top until I've decided that, it's at the perfect place for me. And then I'll actually cut it down. I've actually cut it down once already and it still has a lot. And if you look underneath, if you're not running fenders, you can actually play a little bit with pushing the steerer tube down and not having to cut it as long as it doesn't interfere with the tire rotation. So that's another option you might have that you might want to think about in terms of comfort and steerer tube adjustment, handlebar height adjustment, and stuff like that. The other thing that's really cool about these bikes, it's hard to see here in the pic, but it does have an eccentric bottom bracket, so you can adjust the height of the bottom bracket. Now that's really cool when you're thinking about riding over rough terrain and you want to raise the pedal strike limit a little higher so you don't hit stuff as you're riding through. Or if you want to lower yourself a little bit on the bike, you could also drop it down. For me, I have it up high because I tend to ride mixed stuff and I'd rather have it up high. So when I do ride more of the off-road stuff, I don't have to worry as much. I just run a Thompson seat post on this. Yes, I got one of those weird specialized power saddles. I thought they would be weird and suck, and then I actually rode them for a while and I got super attached to it. And for some reason, it makes your body position feel a little bit more comfortable, at least for me, just by the way that the saddle is designed. So I recommend giving them a shot. I used to ride a Brooks on this bike for a while, but I switched off because the Brooks model that I had didn't slide between my legs a lot of times when I was trying to change my weight distribution from front to back on the bike, going downhill and stuff. So I wanted to have something a little bit more narrow and sleek, but still comfortable. And someone recommended this for me. Turned out to be a smart move as far as comfort goes and also like maneuverability on the bike. So I recommend it if anyone wants to give it a shot. I think it's worth it. Trying these saddles out. Just standard water bottle mounts on here. I'm trying to think of, questions, concerns people have about these bikes. Again, the price is really tough, but now that Jeff is offering the complete short wheelbase version, which by the way, I have ridden the short wheelbase. I had an old, I had the custom frame version set up with 29-inch wheels, and that felt really good. Not as comfortable as the long wheelbase, but really maneuverable, super kind of, what's the word? It's just kind of super nimble. on the trails, because it has that shorter wheelbase, so you really can cut turns and just like wheelie the hell out of that bike, and it's a lot of fun. Very responsive handling. Don't think though that just because this is a long wheelbase that it doesn't have responsive handling. This has the most responsive handling of a long wheelbase rigid bike like this that I have ever experienced. It is probably better than some short wheelbase bikes. And when you ride it, you just cannot believe how that back somehow follows through with the front in the way that it does. Whatever genius mathematics that Jeff came up with when it comes to that geometry of the front in relation to the back just happens to work really well. This bike definitely can handle techie terrain and tight terrain. Somehow it does it. You don't believe it. I know. You look at this wheelbase, look how big this thing is, right? But when you actually get into trails, it just disappears somehow. And it really makes a lot of sense how it works. So I think that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, stuff that you may want like me to address about what it is to ride one of these bikes, just, post something below the video and let me know. And thanks a lot. I hope this helps because there's not too many user reviews, or at least YouTube user reviews of these bikes out there. And I think more folks got to know about Jones and Jones bikes, because I think a lot of folks that have problems with their back or with certain health issues could really benefit from picking one of these up. And even if they can't snag the long wheelbase now, because the price is really too much. It took me a while to build this up because I don't make much money, and but I didn't want to be out of cycling. So I just took the time to slowly build it up. But now that the complete bikes are available for the short wheelbase version, I think there's a lot more folks can get their hands on these. So I wanted to just put this video out there for people that are unfamiliar with Jones bikes and from a regular user perspective. So I hope this helps. Thanks very much, everybody.